Welcome to Between the Shelves, the premier Save a Library podcast. I had to make sure to get the tagline in this time because we missed it a few episodes in a row. It's June, it's Pride Month, so we are going to be doing an episode today talking about some of our favorite LGBTQ authors. And then in next week's episode, we're going to be talking about some of our favorite artists in other genres, music, movies, etc. So I'm joined today by Kristina from Adult Services.
Hello.
Peter from Adult Services.
Hello.
And Marianne, the head of Teens.
Hi.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks for asking us, Alex.
Yeah, you're all podcast pros at this point.
We're regulars.
Yeah, you're regulars. Let's just get into it. So I think we all have some different books, authors that we're interested in talking about. So I guess I'll lead it off if that's okay, if there's no other business to get ahead of.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first book I want to talk about is, it's a graphic novel. It's one of my favorites. It is A Fun Home, A Family Tragicomic by Alison Bechdel. Anyone read this one?
No.
Yes.
You have?
Yes, it's required reading.
Same. It was a required reading for me as well, and I love this. Love this book. I think it was required in a short story class I took in college as an elective.
I took it in a graphic novel course in library school. Where it was
Oh wow!
required.
I'm jealous. That would have been a class I took, but it was not available. So I think they just took one of the flashbacks from this book as the short story. That's what we covered. But I loved it so much that I went back and read the whole book. It's one of the best graphic novels that I've ever read, too. And it tells the story of, it's autobiographical. It tells the story of the author, Alison Bechdel, and her relationship with her father, who was always kind of like a manic depressive. And it's about, their tumultuous relationship with her growing up. And then you come to find out that her father is actually closeted gay man, and his depression kind of stems from him grappling with that and everything else. And it's called a tragicomic for a reason. It's not so bright and bubbly story, but the artwork is fantastic, the storytelling's fantastic. It won a whole bunch of awards, and it won the Eisner Award, which is the best graphic novel of the year. And I think it absolutely deserved it. Apparently, it took Alison Bechdel 7 years to write and illustrate it. And I was reading up about it, and her technique for composing each frame of the graphic novel is she would pose herself dressed up as her father and take a photo of herself, and then she would illustrate herself as her father. It was a painstaking process. So yeah, it's really, really great. Can't recommend it enough. A Fun Home, I already messed it up. Fun Home, A Family Tragicomic by Alison Bechdel.
Alex, didn't they there was a Broadway play made of that?
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
FYI. I don't think it's still playing. I don't know.
Think so,
but it was a few years ago. It was on Broadway.
Oh. I think she wrote a sequel, too, that I haven't read, but I'll have to check that out. All right, who wants to go next?
I can go next because I also have an autobiographical comic as one of mine. So mine is My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness by Kabi Nagata. So it's an autobiographical manga of the author kind of exploring her sexuality as a 20-something while also struggling with mental illness. And it is really good. It's done mostly in black and white, but it's also partially pink. And it sort of explores kind of more the Japanese culture of dealing with mental illness and also with same-sex relationships. But it's really good. There's a lot of probably things that are relatable in it for, I think, a lot of people. It was actually another required reading for my graphic novel course in library school. And it's also really short. And the author has continued to write not necessarily sequels, but companions to the book about different aspects that are explored in here. In one of them, she deals with alcoholism, so she has one that is dedicated to dealing with that. she has two more that are dedicated to trying to find love. And they're all, I wouldn't say fun to read, but they're all very good.
Sounds
That's
good.
it, yes.
I have no follow-up questions. Peter, you want to keep going around?
Yeah, my first one actually it's a novel, but it's also somewhat autobiographical. It's We Disappear by Scott Heim. And the main character, the author hasn't like really said what is and isn't autobiographical. Obviously, some of it's far-fetched enough that it probably isn't all, but the main character is named Scott also. So, but it tells a story of the main character who is from Kansas but is living in the city. He's not doing well. He's addicted to meth. He's a gay man, and he gets a call from his mom in Kansas that she wants him to come back to Kansas and help her solve the mystery of this missing boy in their hometown. So he flies back because he's like floundering anyway. He has kind of a dead-end job, and it turns out that the real reason his mom, she is like obsessed with finding this lost boy, but she's also dying of cancer. And he finds out that she believes that she was a missing child when she was young, that she was abducted, and memories are surfacing. And it's really, I read this actually during lockdown, and it's really haunting, but it's moving. And I found that it really captures, for me at least, that kind of special relationship a lot of gay men have with their moms. But it's, so they're solving a mystery, which I like, and the whole family thing and dealing with the mother's death and him dealing with his, he's going through withdrawals, and it's really beautifully written. It's really strange, poignant, heartbreaking, and I recommend it very highly.
So I wasn't going to talk about this book, but since everybody's doing these autobiographies, I figure I will add in one of my favorites that I read. I read this last year, and it's called This Body I Wore by Diana Goetsch. I think you say it, Goetsch, and she's actually from Long Island. She's from Northport, and reading the book, if you're familiar with Northport or Long Island in general, she mentions all these places on Long Island. She even mentions her one of her addresses in Stony Brook, which of course I had to Google, and then I saw that they were renting the place in like Zillow, so I had to look through the pictures of the home she lived in. I just thought it was really neat. It took me to like a different level of the book. So it's her memoir of growing up, and she is a trans woman, but she doesn't come out and she doesn't transition until she's an adult, a much older adult in maybe her 40s. So there's a lot of books out there where they transition when they're a lot younger, or but this was one of the first ones I ever read of somebody in their middle ages transitioning. So it was very interesting book, and she's very honest about what it's like to to live in a misgendered body during the 80s and the 90s. So that was when she grew up, and she lived all around in the city. She grew up sneaking into a lot of the gay clubs, grew up thinking that she was gay. She was married a couple times. I think she had a family, or she was married to somebody who had a family, so she's got some step kids. And she finally just really realized who she was when she was in her middle ages. So I thought it was a really great book because we don't have a lot of autobiographies out there of somebody who's not famous who transitions later in life. Like, we have Chaz Bono, right? He's famous, and Caitlyn Jenner, who's also famous, but this woman is a poet and a writer. So it's nice to get her perspective growing up I thought it was just a really beautifully written book, and it was just really honest, and it wasn't a very long book either. And I recommend it for anyone that likes any kind of autobiography or memoir of somebody living in a misgendered body.
Okay, I am next. So the next author I wanted to highlight is Virginia Woolf. So this book and the next book I want to talk about that I'll get into later, they're both written in the 20s. So this is obviously a time in history where coming out was not something one would do, or at least celebrated. So Virginia Woolf was married to a man, but most of her life she had a correspondence with a woman that she, by all accounts, was in love with and lived with it sometimes. So I think it's pretty safe to say that she was somewhere in the LGBTQ community. I think they would embrace her as one of their own. So the book I wanted to highlight by her, I've read almost all of hers, but my favorite is Mrs. Dalloway. It was written in 1925. This is probably the most autobiographical of her books. It's still fiction, but it's told through the perspective of Mrs. Dalloway, who is going about her day preparing for a party that evening at her house. And most of the story is told through kind of like a stream of conscious sort of writing, and has flashbacks to her youth. And she's reflecting a lot on some of her suitors she's had in the past. And she keeps coming back to this woman named Sally. She doesn't outright say it, but you can kind of read between the lines that she's in love with Sally, and she's kind of daydreaming about what her life would be like if she ran away with Sally when she had the opportunity. So it's a really wonderful story. It's not very long. I definitely recommend it for anyone. And I'm not like an English major. I wish I knew more about classic literature to kind of really break down this book. But if you're like me and you just like good writing, it's wonderfully written. So there's a lot to take away from it. So Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf is my recommendation. Good one.
My next one is Light from Uncommon Stars by Ryka Aoki. To escape damnation, the main character must entice 7 violin prodigies to trade their souls for success. So the book starts when she's already delivered 6 of them, and she's looking for her 7th. And she meets a trans runaway, Katrina, who, by all accounts, is like a violin prodigy. While all of this is going on, the main character also just happens upon a donut shop owned by an alien refugee. And they fall in love, and they also sort of really come to care for Katrina and are trying to find different ways out of sacrificing her soul to the devil so that she can continue to live. So, like, her life has kind of already been so tragic. She is a beautiful musician. Why are we going to do this to someone? And it sounds a lot more, I think, silly than it is. Like, if you think like an alien refugee at a donut shop, like, very like Douglas Adams. But it's a lot more serious than that. But it is a really fun book to read. A lot of interesting stuff happens in it, and it's really good if you like sci-fi.
I do. I'm going to add that to my list.
That sounds interesting, yeah.
It's my turn, isn't it? My next one is, it's called Sorrowland by Solomon Rivers. I think it's their second book. First one is called The Deep, which is also really good, but Sorrowland is a much more difficult read, but I think it's got a lot more, well, I don't know if I would say it has a lot more substance, but it had a lot to think about in it. It's about a young albino black intersex woman. She identifies as a woman in the book that is living in a black separatist cult, and she's being, it sounds so melodramatic, but she's being abused by the cult leader, who's her husband, but she's quite young. She escapes, and she's pregnant when she escapes, and gives birth to twins, and they are living in the wilderness, and the interesting thing to me about the book is she ends up eventually going back to the cult and kind of taking it down and everything. But all along the way, the themes of the book are just, it's about being in between identities, not having a clear black, white, male, female, gay, straight. So it really does a really good job of capturing what it's like to be someone who lives in the margins in between. And I just, as a related note, their other book, The Deep, is really good. It's based on a rap song by the band Clipping, but it's about a like civilization of mermaids who find out that they are descendants of escaped people from slave ships that jumped overboard, and instead of being enslaved, slave ships coming from Africa and somehow evolved into mermaids. That one is a little more accessible, but I recommend both.
Cool. That one sounds interesting. So I have to talk about, of course, the teen book. The teen series, actually, that's one of my favorites. It's a graphic novel series, and it's Heartstopper. Has anybody read Heartstopper?
I have.
You have? Okay.
Yes.
Yay. So it's like my favorite graphic novel series, volumes 1 through 4. There is a novella out now that came out in January, I think, or actually maybe it was a little bit before that, but I did not read that one yet. So the first 4 volumes in the series are just, I just love them so much. In my notes, I wrote it 3 times, love, 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 because I just think it's one of the sweetest series I've ever read. It's very heartwarming. It's about first love. And I mean, like, not to sound ridiculous, but this is like a series that I read it and like, I felt those butterflies again, like, you know, like thinking back to, you know, back when you're in high school or, you know, you have an early relationship. It's just, it's very sweet. It's very innocent. It's awkward. You have 2 main characters, Charlie, and he's like this awkward guy who's, you know, plays the drums, and I think the kids are like 15 years old, and then Nick, who is like the popular jock, he plays rugby, and then he and Charlie are paired together in like a science class. They're paired together at the table, and they start to become friends. Nick convinces Charlie to join the rugby team, and they get to know each other, they spend time together, and it's very slowly that they start to fall for each other. And, you know, they keep it a secret from their friends. There's a lot of characters in there. There's a trans character. There's a lot of diversity. So it's a really great book to read because this all takes place in England, but they're not all like, you know, it's a very diverse cast, is what I'm trying to say. The boys come out. Charlie's already out. Nick is not, so he comes out to his mother. Both of their families are very supportive. The illustrations in the book are really, really, really good. I think they're perfectly paired with the text. And then slowly through the series, we start to find out that Charlie has a mental illness. And it's just such a beautiful book, and each book ends really sweet, and the next one picks up like really, really great also. And I am going to talk about that series as a TV show in the next podcast. So
I just wanted to interject that it's I think it's so great that books like that exist now, because like I grew up not seeing myself in, it's particularly in like a love story kind of book. So I'm a little jealous of kids now.
There's lots now in teen, thank goodness. And this series in particular is very hard to keep on the shelves. Like, and I think it's great for adults and teens. And the teens are coming in and asking for this book. So yeah, it's out there, and it is good, Peter. It's great. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Thank you. So, well, my next recommendation is a little drier than that, unfortunately. So I'm going back to the 1920s. So this author, her name is Willa Cather, and the book is called Death Comes for the Archbishop. I know it's a very dramatic title, but it's not a very dramatic book. So this book was written in, again, 1927 during like the Jazz Age. So Willa Cather, she wanted to write a book that was sort of the antithesis of how she saw society going. So during the Jazz Age, she saw a lot of like loose morals and capitalism kind of running amok and people chasing a dollar as opposed to like traditional, values that she saw growing up in, I think she grew up in like the Midwest, I want to say. In any case, so she wanted to write a book that kind of showed a different way to live. So she wrote Death Comes for the Archbishop, and it's about a Catholic bishop who is sent to America in the mid 1800s at the new territory of New Mexico to settle a diocese there. So it's all told from his perspective and his trials and tribulations of navigating this wilderness in a land that he doesn't speak the language natively. And the writing, the prose is just absolutely beautiful. She paints this beautiful picture of, the New Mexican desert and the beauty that you can find there. The writing is just absolutely beautiful. So yeah, I didn't even realize, I only discovered that Willa Cather was gay doing research for this episode, because it doesn't have any, there's no gay characters in the book or anything, but I don't know, it was just an interesting, this book has stuck with me, and I just wanted to mention it because, the writing is just fantastic, and Willa Cather seems like a very interesting character, so I'd like to learn more about her. I'm going to see if there's like a biography or something about her, because she seems like a very interesting woman. So I definitely recommend that. Death Comes for the Archbishop by Willa Cather.
Like Alex is like a classics professor up here.
I know.
So my next one is actually a trilogy. It's called the Kingston Cycle. It's 3 books: Witchmark, Storm Song, and Soul Star, by C.L. Polk. And they're all fantasy romance. And it's a trilogy more in the way that like romance books are a trilogy. Each book follows a different protagonist, but there is a larger overarching plot that flows through all 3. So it takes place in a world that's inspired by like Edwardian England, and they're like kind of on the cusp of like a world war, and if you have magic, it's not a gift. You're going to basically be exploited for war or used as a battery. If you are not as strong as somebody else, they could use you as a battery for their magic. And each book in the series has like a different queer romance, also a mystery in each one, and also a very diverse cast. It also is about like fighting systemic oppression. So if you are into stuff like that, this is a great book. Also, the book covers, since there are 3 of them, are blue, purple, and pink in that order. So it's the bi flag. But it's a great series. All 3 of the books, I think, for a trilogy are just as strong as the one before. And I think it has a very satisfying ending, which isn't always true in fantasy trilogies. But I love this series, and I think more people should read it.
I will read it. Me and Kristina are on the same page, yes. I think, in a lot of ways, reading-wise.
I feel like the old-timer, like, let me tell you about this other book I read.
Oh, I'm up. My next one, I have a book, but it's really the author. She's probably my favorite current sci-fi fantasy author. She's a trans woman. Her name's Charlie Jane Anders. The book that I was going to talk about is All the Birds in the Sky. It doesn't really deal directly with any like LGBTQ themes, but it's just a great fantasy book. It's about childhood friends who reunite as adults in San Francisco. One's an engineering genius, and the other is a witch. And they both work together to try to repair the world. They connect with another group of magicians. And it's really just a fun book. It has like really snappy, kind of like Joss Whedon-esque dialogue. It's funny, it's can be touching, but really I recommend all of her books. She's only written 2 adult novels, this one and City in the Middle of the Night, which is a sci-fi novel, but she has a really good YA trilogy. The first book is Victory is Greater Than Death, that does deal with has non-binary character, gay characters, and it's a really good fun YA fantasy. And she's got some good short story collections too, but I recommend everything she's written. But this one, All the Birds in the Sky by Charlie Jane Anders.
I'm going to do another teen book. This is another really popular book for the past year or so. It's called They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera, and this is like a teen speculative fiction. So it's a little bit in the future, and there's this company called Deathcast, and they call you on your last day alive, and they call to tell you that it's what's called your end day. So there's these 2 boys that they're strangers to each other, and they both get that call on their last day, and their names are Mateo and Rufus, and they're both alone, they're both scared. I think they're about 17-ish years old, and they want to make a new friend on their end day. So they join this app called Last Friend, and it's how you make a friend on your last day. So they meet each other, and they have this one single day together. They don't know what they're going to do. They don't know when they're going to die or how they're going to die. But, they both die at the end because that's the name of the title. And even though we know how it ends, the journey there is beautiful. It's heartbreaking. And it's even surprising. So they kind of fall for each other in the book, and they're one day together. And the reader also falls for them. They're both very likable. They're diverse characters. There is a sequel out right now called The First to Die at the End, and it's a prequel, and it starts just when the Deathcast goes live. And the first people get the first call ever, and that's what the sequel is about. And it's a really great duology.
Have you read those Scythe books? That sounds similar.
No, but those are very popular.
Yeah, it's kind of a similar concept.
Yes, with the yes. I would like to read those. Yeah, that's it.
Sounds fun. Yeah. So it's time for old man Alex to dust off one of his books from his shelf. So this one's a little bit newer. It's from the 50s.
Oh, yeah. A modern book.
So this author is James Baldwin. He's one of my favorite writers. He's probably most famous for his nonfiction work, his essays on racism and race, and he kind of made him a civil rights movement leader, maybe begrudgingly. I don't think he really took that crown, accepted it very willingly, but in any case, he also wrote many great, fantastic fiction novels. And the one that I want to talk about is called Giovanni's Room. It was written in 1956, and it's, I was almost going to say semi-autobiographical, but I'm going to cross that out. It's not. But James Baldwin did live in Paris for a while to get away from the troubles he saw in America. And this book is also set in Paris. It's about a young man who escapes his troubled upbringing in Brooklyn to kind of explore Europe with his girlfriend Hella. So something happens, we're not really sure, but this main character and his girlfriend kind of split up. Hella decides to go away for a few weeks, and this young man is left alone in Paris. And the book is kind of, it's not told, what am I trying to say? It's kind of told in segments. It jumps around in time a little bit. So basically we come to learn through stream of conscious and flashbacks that this main character is gay or bi, and he uses this opportunity to kind of explore that other side of him that he can't explore, or he couldn't explore back in America openly. So he finds this bartender named Giovanni that he falls in love with, and Giovanni's a very troubled character, we come to find out, and I'm not spoiling too much, I think this is all on the back cover of the book, but basically Giovanni gets in trouble with the law, and that kind of sets a lot of things in motion that gets our main character in a bit of trouble. And then when things are looking really bad, all of a sudden Hella decides to come back to Paris, and then we have this love triangle thing going on, and it's a great story. Like, it's a really great story, and I'm shocked it hasn't been adapted to like a movie or a show or a miniseries or something, because the story is like really riveting and still modern and great. But James Baldwin, again, I mean, he got famous for his writing, and the prose in this book is phenomenal. Like, it's one of the best written books I've ever read. So if you like good writing, you'll like this. If you're looking for kind of like a mystery, there's that part of it too. If you like romance, this is one of the best romance books I've ever read. So really can't recommend it enough. And it's one of those, I haven't read too many books with a gay protagonist that is a romantic book. So this, it was kind of not eye-opening for me, but it was an opportunity for me to read a book from a perspective that I don't personally live and I don't see very often. So, it was really profound for me. I really, really enjoyed this book. And just some last quick note about this book. James Baldwin, he was doing pretty well at this time. He was famous for his nonfiction writing, and his publisher, when James Baldwin presented this book to his publisher like urged him, like, please don't put out this book. Like, we don't want to put this out because it will, no one wants to read a book about a gay main character and his romance and everything. But James Baldwin persisted, and the book was a success. So, speaks to him as his character, and can't recommend it enough. Giovanni's Room, James Baldwin.
I actually had Another Country on my list by James Baldwin, but then I thought, I bet Alex has James Baldwin on his list, so I took it off.
I almost mentioned that one. If Beale Street Can Talk is another great one too. Yeah. Great movie too, adaptation. But
I actually saw that.
Hey. All right, that was my last book.
Okay, my last book is The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. It is a fantasy world inspired by India, where a princess is being held captive in a tower, and a maidservant has to come up and give her care basically every day, make sure she has food, help with her wash basin, all of that stuff. And when there is a attempt on the princess's life, the maidservant Priya reveals that she has like a forbidden magic, and the two of them decide to basically burn the empire that is holding her captive to the ground, while also falling in love. And it is really great. I think it's set to be a trilogy, but only the first two books are out. The third one isn't. And it's just, if you like, I would say like kind of classic fantasy, like we're bringing down like a great evil type of thing. There are also like a lot of really interesting side characters. There is a culture that they talk about where at a certain, when you come of age, you're given your true name, but your true name is a prophecy, and you can't let anybody know what that prophecy is until the time of the prophecy comes to be. So they just have sort of like, they just pick a name to go by at that point, and then once that person realizes that like, oh, here's the thing that's going to happen, they can reveal what their like true name is going to be, and like that is a big part of like the series and like what happens in the book. And it's just a lot of like really interesting things going on in the book, and it's not done, but I bet it's going to be great.
I was just going to say, good job. That was a risk to start reading a series that wasn't over. Hopefully it finishes.
I was going to talk about Gideon the Ninth, and I was like, I can't. Another series that's not done, and they added more books in the middle.
Okay. My last one is Dhalgren by Samuel Delany. And Samuel Delany was part of what was known as the new wave of sci-fi that happened in 60s, 70s, which is one of my favorite sets of writers. It included Michael Moorcock, Ursula Le Guin, Roger Zelazny, and a few other people that were just trying new things. Up to that point, science fiction and fantasy had kind of been, just spaceships and shooting aliens and that sort of thing. So they started trying new things with sci-fi and fantasy. And Dhalgren, I'm finding that a lot of the books I put on my list are very hard to describe because they're very strange. But Dhalgren is a really strange post-apocalyptic sci-fi novel. It's set in a fictional Midwestern city called Bologna that's had a mysterious disaster. Nobody knows what happened, but everything's dying. Everything is in ruins. They don't really say what happened. It just happened. And most people fled, but some people have decided to stay in this kind of abandoned city with no real services or anything. And it's also attracted other people, including the main character who is referred in the book as the kid, but he can't remember anything. He can't remember his name, but he's a gay character. And again, it's just the whole city of Bologna, it's just attracted this group of people from the margins and outsiders. And, especially it came out in the 70s. That was a time where all LGBTQ people, still true, but even back then it was even more true that, we were in the margins. And it's just a really strange book, and it's a really interesting read. It's hard to kind of describe because it doesn't have a real straightforward plot. It's just the kid going around the city and encountering different characters of these, marginal people. And it's a fascinating read.
Yeah. This has been on my to-read list for a long time. And I think when I started working here, we were talking about, whatever, sci-fi or something. And I mentioned that I wanted to read this book, and you recommended it to me then. So I have to keep bumping this up my list, my to-read list.
Yeah, it's not an easy read. It's not, one of those quick reads, but it's an interesting read.
Okay, so my last book is one of my favorite books that I read this year. So it's a 2023. It's an adult novel. It's called In Memoriam by Alice Winn, and it's a historic novel. It's an epic historic novel. It takes place in the early 1900s when World War I just breaks out, and these boys are in a private prep school in England, and it is an all-male school. And these two boys become good friends before they go to this school. So they're about 13 years old, but when the novel starts, they are about 16 and 17. They're a year apart, and they develop a really close relationship. So they become best friends when they're 13. And we meet them in the prep school. World War I is just beginning, and the people around the school and just around in the world, they will go up to, I think this is all historically accurate because there was so much research that was put into this novel, but it seems that if people came across a young man on the street, they think that they should be fighting in the war. So if they're not fighting in the war, they would give them some kind of a feather or something. And it was an insult. So those boys would be insulted, and they would go and they would join the royal, whatever they call it out in England. So these boys, they're in school. They're all underage, but one of them gets this feather. They get pressure from their parents because their mother is German. Even though they don't live in Germany, mother's German, and the mother says, you should be fighting, for England. You should, so that people don't think that we're on the other side. So this boy who is 17 years old, he goes and he enlists, he lies, he says he's 19, and he gets sent off to war. and he leaves his best friend behind, and his best friend is 16. He's sad. He misses him. He's trying to come to terms with his feelings because we kind of realize that he's in love with the one who went off to war. Then we have letters exchanged back and forth between them, and it kind of comes out a little bit that the one that's left behind loves the other one. So now he decides he wants to go and fight. So he lies about his age, same thing. He's 16 years old. Now he gets put in the same, I don't know what they're called, group of military unit maybe. And he meets his friend again, and his friend, who's been in the war for several months now, is a completely different person. And they love each other though, and they both realize that the other person, like, they're not just pining at, like, one's not pining after the other, like, they both realize, like, we love each other. They kind of have a hidden relationship. Something major happens, and they get separated. And anyway, a lot of stuff happens because it's World War I, and these boys are writing letters to other boys in their school, and a lot of the kids from the school all lie about their age. They all start joining, and in the book the author puts like just lists from their school newspaper. They would get the school newspaper, and it would say who died in action, who's injured, and they would read off all the names. And a lot of the people were real people that the author did through her research. She put a lot of real people in there. And then later on, we meet up again, and we see the results of fighting in a very brutal war. There's a lot, like one of the characters, they're in a POW camp. They go through a lot. They escape. They are running through Europe. The other one is fighting like his own battles, and everyone suffers very badly from PTSD. But in World War I, nobody really knew that term. They just called it like, I forgot the term that they used, but shell shocked. Yes, that's it. He's just shell shocked. Like, it'll wear off eventually. Like, they don't realize. And we see like all these different effects of the PTSD, and it's beautiful. The writing is beautiful. It's very poetic because one of the characters is a poet, and so where there's lots of prose in it. It's gut-wrenching, it's brutal, it's very graphic, and yet it has a happy ending. And it was so beautiful. It was an amazing book. So I recommend it. It's called In Memoriam by Alice Winn, and I think it should win all sorts of awards this year.
I'm realizing how much better children's and teen librarians are at giving book talks than we are.
Really?
I'm like, you're so organized. And like,
I don't feel like I am, so thank you.
We're going to bring her in for this episode.
But yes, so read that.
Yeah, great recommendations, everyone. Thank you for sharing. And next episode, we're going to be keeping the Pride Month celebration going, and we're going to be talking about some of our favorite LGBTQ creators in film, TV, music, maybe some other genres, I don't know. So stay tuned for that. And thank you everyone for joining me in this episode. I hope you'll come back for the next episode.
I'll think about it.
Yeah,
I'm locking the door right now.
Might have to be busy. Wash my hair.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.